going on, guys? Dan here, back in the garage again with the Harley build series. Today we're going to be dropping the motor outside of it. I don't even know what part we're on. I think we're on part like 3 or 4 now. We made some pretty decent progress. The handlebars that are done. I actually, believe it or not, I cleaned it a little bit. I took the hose to it and the tank's a little bit cleaner now, but that's about it. The rest of it's caked on so much with grease and iron ore and stuff like that it's just not coming off with just a simple wash. So I'm gonna have to take it up one day and get it power washed. But I'd like to give a quick word to our sponsors today, Moto Amino. If you're unaware of what Moto Amino is, it's a motorcycle app basically made for people like you and me. It's to help you find new people to ride with, it's to help you find new trails, it's to help you find how to fix certain things like this old Harley right here. I've been on it a lot looking for help with this bike and trying to find parts and stuff like that for it.
As you can see, there's the Moto Amino app. If you look at it, it gives you a bunch of different like forums that you can basically look at, like long trip tips if you're planning on taking a long trip anytime soon. You have to pardon my dirty hands because I've been working on the bike all day. There's different groups for riders like Alabama, and these are open pages, so you can come in here and join the different live streams and look at these. You can join the conversation and chats. You can do checking into your locations. It works a lot like Facebook except for motorcycles. You can look at your type of bikes like sport bikes, and then you can just follow different types of bikes that you want. You can choose lifestyles. If you're interested in fixing stuff, you go to the mechanic and repairs option, and then that'll bring you to like different subjects. Because it's motorcycles, it's mostly about zip ties.
It's a lot like Tinder, except for motorcycles, except nobody's trying to have sex with you. I still like that analogy. Yeah, I still like that analogy. Link for both Apple and Android download is in the description, so make sure to check it out. They said that if enough people followed and downloaded, that they would continue to help us out with the project. Anyway, let's get started. So as you guys can obviously see, I went ahead and removed the seat and the rear fender because, well, they were kind of like one piece and they were stuck together. That's just gonna help me in the future anyway, so I figured if I was gonna clean it, I would take that seat off because it's got like really just absolute nasty foam inside of it. So this is what we're looking at right now. Today the goal is to be able to remove the motor completely from the motorcycle and then start planning and designing how we're gonna do the motor swap. I'll go get the motor here in a second, and then we'll set them up on that bench and we'll compare the two sizes and try to figure out a good way to mount the motor inside of this. Now I think right off the bat, the first thing I should do would be to remove the exhaust. So as you can see, since it is a 2-stroke, it's got this really long, crazy, goofy looking baffle right here. So I think I need to remove this first before I even start trying to fuck with the engine mounts, just because of how big it is and how much in the way it is of everything else. So the exhaust is bolted onto the suspension over here, but this has more of like a built-in hanger, so you don't need to fully remove the bolt in order to get the exhaust off. It looks like that if I were actually just to loosen this up and then take it off at the end of the motor, I should be able to just pull the whole thing off in one piece. That is awful. Now surprisingly enough, it seems like the only thing holding on this exhaust is this little spring. Much like a modern exhaust on a CBR or a GSXR, the slip-ons use these little springs right here to like basically just create tension between the pipe and whatnot. It just sits in the pipe and it pushes them together basically. And it looks like that's all that's holding this on. I don't see any bolts anywhere else, so I'm just gonna take this off and hopefully it'll pop off. That was easy. Little PB blast right there. Now this is where everyone seems to get mad because I'm breaking out the hammer. And there we go. The exhaust has been removed. There we go, the exhaust is off. So now we're starting to get down to a really simple bike. And man, this bike looks so small missing the exhaust and the seat. Now I do have a new seat on the way. It's a cafe racer style seat. What I'll probably end up doing is shaving off these mounts, creating my own, and reusing this whole seat assembly for the new seat. It should just lay on top of it, and if there's anything else hanging over like this, I'll cut it off. It'll be that easy. What's really cool is I need to take the tank off now. I mean, it's really easy to take the tank off. The only thing that's holding it on is this little clip right here. So you just kind of like undo that clip. And now the tank is completely free to move. Of course I have to take off the hose of the petcock first, but other than that. Now the reason I'm removing the tank is just to make sure I can look at the frame 100%, because if I need to fashion or make motor mounts, The tank doesn't need to be on there anyway because I'll be either A, cutting or grinding or welding, or B, using cardboard to create the designs of the actual motor mounts for me. That's kind of what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to use cardboard to mimic what the motor mounts are going to look like, make sure they match, and then I will be basically replicating that with thick steel that I can weld to the frame. And the tank just comes off like so. Easy as 1, 2, 7. Of course, the chain will have to come off. I can probably just wrench that off once I take the motor off. I'll probably start off by taking this crank cover off first. I don't think the hard part is going to be making new motor mounts. I think the hard part is going to be switching over these controls to the other side, because this is actually your rear brake. Pretty weird, right? Which means that it's not a conventional motor. The motor that I've bought to swap it out with, as much as you guys hate it, is actually like a regular motor where the shifter's on this side and the brakes on the other side. So I'm gonna have to swap them out. What sucks about having such an old bike like this is that these are just regular screws, right? They're not bolts, they're not hex bolts or nothing like that. They're just regular flathead screws. But the fact is that they're so old and this bike is so worn out that they're just incredibly malleable. So if I were to try to turn them like this, for instance, it's just gonna rip the screw up. And you're gonna find that on literally every screw. So, looks like I probably won't be able to take this cover off unless I cut it, which I really don't want to do. Right behind here is the front sprocket. If you don't know anything about motorcycles, you have 2 sprockets. The engine turns this sprocket that's inside of here, that also turns this sprocket, which is, this one's much smaller, and then this one's bigger, and then you get gear ratios, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure 98% of you guys know that. I might be able to figure something out. Let's get to work. So we have one motor mount here, which isn't really a motor mount, it just kind of holds the air filter on. We have one that's directly behind this cover that shields the chain and sprockets, that goes through to both sides. I should be able to reach that no problem. And then it looks like this one is held together by the ignition, which is really strange. It looks like it's more of a cover rather than a mount, but it's still holding it on. I don't see one underneath. It might just rest underneath, it might just cup it like a sack. 1, 2, 3 mounts that really hold this engine in place, which is really all you need. The engine doesn't weigh anything more than maybe 50 or 60 pounds. I mean, it's the majority of the weight on this bike. Everything else is really minuscule. I mean, you see how simple the frame is on this bike. Might not be so hard if I can just reuse these. See, now the punch is stuck on the other side. There you go. Oh yeah. Engine's being born. Oh, hey, it's out. It's like a baby, right? You can drop it once or twice. Be alright. You stupid fat baby. It looks like whenever my uncle dropped it, it bent this all the way back. That's originally what caused the whole centerpiece to be bent. It probably somehow bent the motor mount inside of it, so that's why it's being such a stubborn pain in the ass. In the manual, entirely for my lack of knowledge, specifically because it did not list this as a step. Not my problem. And now we have a free motor. Almost. Hold on. Ha 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 ha. Yes. Ugh. Oh man. Whew. So this is the motor that came out of obviously the Harley. This is the motor. And this is the replacement motor that's going in. Actually, it looks to be as though the footprint of this motor is smaller than this motor, which is kind of what I was hoping for. The actual swap itself shouldn't be too bad. Now, there's obviously going to be some strangeness to it. I've kind of kept this a secret on what type of motor this is. This is a Piranha 140cc pit bike motor, or dirt bike motor, whatever. It produces about 12 horsepower, give or take. It's got oil in it. Are they allowed to ship things with oil in it? Besides oil? I don't know. 4-speed transmission, 4-speed transmission. Kickstart's on the right, just like this one is, except the foot control's gonna be on the left instead of on the right with this one. Isn't this weird? I might even be able to keep the same lever, I don't know. I'm gonna try to do my best. That's where the kickstart goes. Significantly smaller head, even though that this is a 140cc and this is a 125. I should definitely cover this up with some sort of tape to keep it like this, is to keep things from getting into the intake, and the exhaust would be great too, assuming that I didn't just fucking destroy this thing when I dropped it. So it looks like there's two options for motor mounts here. Here and here are the main ones right here. And there might be one on the bottom too, I don't know. Well, that goes that motor. It doesn't seem to have any other motor mounts other than these two. So I've got here and here. These are the two options that I have, and trying to figure out how to plug them is gonna be interesting. I've already told you it supports 12 volts, so I can use this headlight with it because you guys think that I'm 100% idiot all the time. The main differences between these two is 2-stroke, 4-stroke, 6-volt, 12-volt. They're both 4 speeds. The output is completely different as far as power goes. This is a, like I said, this puts out approximately 2 horsepower. 1.9 horsepower is what the original motor makes. Then this one makes 10 to 12 horsepower, give or take. So it's gonna be an interesting swap if I can figure out how to do it. And the main concern was making sure that the motor was going to be able to fit inside of the actual bike itself as far as lengthwise, and it looks like it's probably going to be able to do that no problem. Now I might just have to mimic the way these, you see how these motor mounts are, where it almost, it uses just these brackets. I might be able to fix this up to do the exact same thing to the actual frame if I were to just run 2 pieces of metal out like that, 2 solid steel brackets, and hold that in place, and then fix this one directly to the frame somehow. I'm sure I could do it. It shouldn't be too hard. And if you have 2 positions, then you don't have to worry about it torquing when you accelerate. You see that's all bent up. It's not supposed to be bent. So I might be able to just reuse this motor mount up here, and then I'll have to fashion something on the bottom. Maybe if I were to just drill a hole through there and then run 2 brackets there and then run 2 brackets up, I don't know, it shouldn't be too hard. Although this is gonna look a lot more open than it normally does. I know a lot of people are really wanting me to keep the 2-stroke, but these Piranha motors are hard to beat. They're powerful, they're easy to replace if anything goes bad, like parts are. The engines themselves are cheap, and they produce good power. So I mean, there's really no negative to it. It's going to be kind of close to what we're looking at here. That motor looks really weird inside that bike. It just doesn't. It's strange. Now I'm gonna have to, obviously I'm gonna lower the front end a little bit so it's more of a level engine. It needs to be kind of this way. It needs to be a little bit more level than what it is right now. It's at an angle, it needs to be more level. The best way for me to make these mounts, I feel like, is going to be using hangers from here to here. I can just weld a plate right here on both sides, and then have hanging brackets similar to the one that's here, like these solid steel brackets like this. Basically mimic something like this with just some steel, cut it, shape it, and then hang them here, and then basically make that bolt that goes there. And then this is gonna be a little bit more tricky because the swing arm's in the way. Maybe once I lower it, it'll be better. Because part of me really wants to have the engine resting on this weird U on the bottom,
just for extra safety. But I could always suspend it if I needed it to. I just literally have it hanging.
And it looks like we'll have plenty of clearance too between the front wheel and the motor, which was my main concern.
That looks doable. Because, you know, your carburetor sits up here. It should have enough room for the carburetor to sit in this little compact area. Then the exhaust comes out the bottom right here. This is where the exhaust comes out. Probably have to get a shop to help custom make an exhaust. It goes from here and run underneath the peg just so it doesn't burn the shit out of me. And we can put a little can right there, just sticking up. So that's the motor. I think it's doable. There's nothing about this that makes me think that it's not doable. And this is probably where this engine will sit for the next couple of months as I slowly rebuild it. This is gonna be my best friend, brake parts cleaner. So I've cleaned up the garage about as much as I really care to. And I've put the Harley away. Did I point at it right? The Harley? I've put it away until after Thanksgiving. Tomorrow I'll be down in Brunswick, hanging out with my parents for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll be back up Saturday to start Christmas decorating and stuff like that. But so I'll probably hit this again probably next Monday or Tuesday is when I'll hit another episode of the build series. I'll get it done. And I'll start making the motor mounts officially. After I make the motor mounts, actually what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna assemble the motor a little bit more first. I'm gonna put the carb on it so I have a better size of what the full motor is gonna look like. That way I can accurately put the motor mounts where they need to be. I will craft and make the motor mounts, and then I will begin basically reassembling it, getting the motor ready, and putting everything back together to make sure it runs and drives good, and that I can, if it runs and drives good, or if I can get it to the point where it runs and rides and I can drive it around, then that makes everything a whole lot easier for me. Because at that point all I have to do is break it back down again, clean it up, sandblast it, powder coat or paint, and then put it back together, and then it's done. So if I had to estimate, there's probably like 4 more videos in this build series if I had to guess. So the engine, the headlight, the electrical, the paint, and then the reassembly and back together and the reveal. So that's 5 according to my map that I've just made up. As much as I do like the yellow of the tank, I think I am still gonna go with the olive drab green, because that's literally gonna be the only thing that's painted a different color. Everything else is gonna remain black. My seat should be here December 1st, so making that mount for the seat shouldn't be too hard. As a matter of fact, it should be very close to what it is now. I need to get my kill switch ordered. Actually, I might flip my light switch and my kill switch because that's how it is on normal bikes. Jax, you're a dog, dude. So these are the grips. It's really hard to tell in this lighting, but they're like a saddlebag brown, like a dark leathery brown look to them. That'll hopefully match the seat direct color. God, it does not look good in this light. This is the rest of the motor that needs to be assembled. You've got your cover for your chain, air filter. This is your shifter lever, kick lever, electrical bits. This is the intake for the carb. And there's the carburetor in that little box right there. I hope so. I haven't opened it yet. I'm just assuming that's what it is. See, that shows a little bit better in the light what color they are. That should actually fit pretty darn well. So yeah, tune in next week on Dickhead Garage. Dickhead Garage.